Nothing to do on a Monday?
All right, guys, go ahead and get started. Coach will make an opening statement and we'll take some questions. Coach, it's all yours.
All right. That time of year again, spring football. Really for us in our program, it's an opportunity for player development, which goes along with our core value number one, which is always compete. Our belief is that always compete is not necessarily against somebody. It's an opportunity for you to develop yourself, to be the best version of yourself, to compete, to be better today than you were yesterday, be better tomorrow than you were today. We have a belief that iron sharpens iron, so the actual root word of compete is to strive together. And so that's really what it's all about for us, is individual player development, and that's goal number one. Goal number two will be to identify the strengths and weaknesses of our schemes and the players within our schemes so that we can help figure out, what do we do best and how do we do it better, and then what are the areas that we're not good at that we need to continue to work to improve. And then number three is to connect our brotherhood, and that really is for us to take our new players, the new players that we have on our roster, and figure out how do they connect, not only in our schemes but also in that locker room. And very excited about the new players that we've added. We added freshman Marvin Burks Jr., who we anticipate will come in and have an opportunity to contribute immediately, much like the other freshmen from St. Louis who've come in early, specifically Marvin at the rover position, Blake Craig, freshman kicker. Look for him to compete with Harrison Mevis, Austin Firestone, transfer from Northwestern at the defensive end position, where there's three guys who've left, either graduated or have left the program. Jake Garcia, quarterback, transfer from Miami, who'll have plenty of opportunity to get reps. Dennis Jackson, a wide receiver from Ole Miss, who looks to compete for some positions either from players graduating or transferring. Marcellus Johnson, opportunity to come in and look forward to seeing him battle at the right tackle position. Trevez Johnson will actually be limited a little bit in spring due to a shoulder injury and rehab, but look forward to him to contribute. Obviously was a starter at the University of Florida before he came here. Dylan Leibel, a transfer quarterback from Hutchinson Junior College. I believe was an All-American junior college quarterback, and so opportunity to come in and compete and have a lot of opportunities and reps here. Ja'Kai Lang, which was was a high school defensive end from the state, from Troy. He's had a really good offseason so far. Joe Moore, legacy young man from Arizona State, transfer from Arizona State. Really excited to get him here. Obviously, an opportunity to compete at the defensive end position. Tristan Newsome, a transfer to linebacker, junior college linebacker, was a highly touted young man, defensive player, and really has the right stuff about him. Look forward to him competing. Ben Stratman, defensive end, seventh-year defensive end, a guy from Missouri S&T, and I guess he saw the Cody Schrader story and figured he'd be the next one. So very excited about his transfer. He will have an opportunity to compete. Theo Weiss, Jr., transfer from Oklahoma. Riley Williams. I normally do my Australian accent, but I didn't have the courage to do it right there. And then Sidney Williams, cousin of Chris Abrams-Drain, but another guy who will have a chance to compete at the star position. So we're really excited about those guys. Spring for us is an opportunity to build on the progress of last season. We finished our last 6 games prior to the bowl game 4-2. Defensively made some big-time jumps from the previous year and was able to retain a lot of the contributing talent on that side of the ball. So very excited for Blake to really get his hands on those guys again, and then added some very good pieces out of the transfer portal. So that looks to be a strength. On the offensive side of the ball, an opportunity for Kirby to really put his stamp and get our offense identity built and start putting those pieces in place with the new ideas and new things that we'll be doing there. So with that, I've got an injury update. So the only player that will be out for the entire spring will be Xavier Simmons. There will be a few guys who are limited that are still recovering from injuries or surgeries. EJ will be limited. We look forward to him probably being back practice 7 or 8 more full speed, but we'll still be working through individual and early rehab stages from an off-season or from a injury suffered in the Kentucky game. Chance is still working through some medical things to just make sure that we've got the right medicines in place for him. And obviously, with that being a blood clotting issue, we're going to be very thorough and careful as we work through that. So he'll be in a green jersey tomorrow, be able to work through injury, but no contact until we can make sure that everything's done there properly. Brady Cook will be limited. He'll be out there, but non-throwing and non-contact. I said Trevez is recovering from an off-season shoulder surgery. He'll be able to do some 7-on-7 and some non-contact limited stuff, but he'll be out there doing some stuff. And then Sam Horn will be limited tomorrow, but he did suffer I don't have the exact diagnosis in front of me, but he did suffer a sprain in a forearm strain from a pitch that he threw on Saturday night that has been MRI'd and has been examined by not only our orthopedist but also in a second opinion, and believe we have that diagnosed well. There was no damage to any ligaments for you baseball guys out there, but he did suffer a forearm strain, so probably will not throw the football tomorrow, but look forward to getting him back to football probably Thursday or Saturday. Baseball, I'll let Steve answer those questions. I'm not sure I'm on that pace scale. So, but I know there were some people worried on Twitter. Dave got us all jacked up on Saturday while I was at the Kaffner banquet. I was interrupted several times about what was going on with Sam, but no, all good. So with that, I'll open it up with the first question for myself, which is, why do we start spring so early? And I know there's a lot of people that ask that question. There's really two reasons, but it's based off the spring break calendar. So if you study the history of injuries in spring football, they normally occur after a spring break, right? So those guys practice, you give them a break for spring break, they go 9 days, and then they come back and still finish up spring, and that's where you suffer some soft tissue injuries and all that stuff. So it's our belief that you want to finish, you either want to do all of your spring before that break or do all of it afterwards. And so for us, with our spring break being the last week in March, we believe it's in the best interest of our players to finish it early or to start it early. And that's one, for injury prevention. Should you suffer an injury, you still have 5 months to recover prior to the season, so you wouldn't miss your season. The second thing is it allows us to get 4 months of uninterrupted training. So you'll have the entire April, May, June, and July for these guys to really make some significant strides in their development, whether that's weight gain, weight loss, muscle mass increase, or speed increase. So there's no taking this time off or taking that time off. And so we feel like it provides valuable opportunity there. And then from a schematic standpoint, the sooner you figure out, it's easy to walk through, but you don't really know about football until all 22 people are moving at the same time. And so you figure out what the schemes are, and then the next 4 months you figure out how to put your players in the best position to be successful, utilizing the schemes that you already know they know. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Eli, have you seen Kirby really jump in these first few weeks that he's been here? And what has he communicated to you that maybe some of his goals for spring is?
Yeah, we've all communicated on what our spring goals are. Number one, we want to take care of the ball. Number two, we want to be more explosive. And three, we want to score points. And some of those are measurable, some are not as measurable. Ball security for us is the utmost importance. We turned the ball over 20 times last year, which was 8 more than the previous year, and so that was a real point of emphasis. I believe we're 8-4, or maybe it's 10-4 when we win the turnover battle, and we're I think it's 6-1 when we win it by +2 or more. And so for both sides of the ball, turnovers and takeaways are a real point of emphasis. We did take the ball away better than we had the previous year, but not as much or as many attempts as we would like. And so that was one of the things for Kirby is really emphasizing, let's take care of the ball, whether it's decision making in the back by the quarterback, Number two is be more explosive. We did not have nearly enough explosive plays, and usually the best way to be explosive is through the air. So being better throwing the ball vertically down the field and being able to chart that and making sure that we're doing that. And then the last one was score more points. It's a little bit tougher to do that, figure that out in practice, but you can chart that, especially when you get your red zone attempts. If we average 7 more points in that a game than we did last year, you're talking about a totally different season. So.
Assuming that Sam is, back in practice in a couple days or whatever, can you kind of explain the process of him participating in 2 sports at this time, and how much of that time is here and when he participates in baseball, and what you and Steve have worked out?
Yeah, first off, Steve and I have had great communication, and our goal is for Sam to be the best version of himself and be the best player that he can be, right? And whether that's a Major League Baseball player or NFL football player, we want to help him achieve both of those. And I guess that's probably my high school background, that your best players can play multiple sports, and so we want to allow that. The NCAA only allows 20 hours a week, whether it's you're dual sporting it or not. So we have to be cognizant of making sure that he's only doing 20 hours a week on both sports. Really January and February have been split between football and baseball. He's been able to participate in our weight training and in our Wednesday walkthroughs. We've been having Tuesday install meetings, Wednesday walkthroughs, and he's been able to make all of those, and then does baseball. Obviously, traveled with the baseball team to the Big 12 Challenge, played well, and then came back for us during the week, and then went back over the weekend. The month of March, it's another kind of reason that it's able for him to play both, is because during this month, the baseball team doesn't have an away game. In fact, they open SEC play the weekend of the spring game, which hopefully Sam will be back and he'll play in the spring game, and then get in a golf cart instead of a helicopter and head on over to play in that game on Saturday. So that's how we've been doing it. As far as it goes this month, like I said, we have to work through the 20-hour-a-week rule. And with his injury, I don't think it'll be as a forearm strain for a baseball pitcher is different than it would be for a football thrower. And so I think he's going to have an extended time off from baseball. So I don't think he'll be throwing a baseball for the next 2.5 weeks. So I don't know that he'll be over there hanging out and doing those things, but they ain't got him hitting yet. So
Yeah. I know that playing one sport in college is kind of a full-time job, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, just the time management and everything it takes to be able to do both of those, how big a challenge is that, and how confident are you that Sam has handled it okay so far?
I mean, it's a real challenge, right? I mean, to be elite at both crafts is very difficult. On top of watching your weight, Sam's also a type 1 diabetic, so he has to monitor his blood sugar, which is something that when he first got here was a challenge that we had to really work through, just to make sure that he was constantly monitoring that. He's been able to add weight, sustain weight, and been able to be really good at that. So I think now that he's been through a full year, full 6 months of being a student athlete here, I think he's becoming more and more comfortable of what his day-to-day routine is. I mean, he threw 97 the other day. I mean, so he's pretty good, he's pretty good, and that's our job, to help him excel at what he can be the best at. And man, I know this. He's really picked up Kirby's offense really well, and our offense, and watching him handle those walkthroughs last week was really impressive. To know that he had just got done throwing 97 and coming in and doing install and handle walkthrough, and then get on a plane the next day and go pitch again. But I mean, you look at some of the great ones in the past. Kyler Murray did it. Jameis Winston's done it. There's been a lot of good players be able to do it. So I'm not going to limit him.
Eli, when Brady gets to be 100%, do you view that as he's the incumbent, that's his job, or is it wide open between all your quarterbacks?
Yeah, I haven't really got to that point yet. I'm focused on this spring and the opportunities that both Jake and Sam are going to have this spring. It's, Brady's going to be out there working and watching, but he's not going to be able to throw, and we'll take it as it comes. I really don't, whether you're talking about Dalen Carnell or Trevez or Joseph Charleston and Sydney or Tristan Newsom and Chad and Tyron Hopper and Marcellus and Armand, everybody's got an opportunity to compete. That's the number one core value of our team. And what you did last year, nobody cares about this year. All right, so every year is an opportunity for you to go out and earn it again. And so that's what we're all focused with doing. And it's not a Brady quote. That's not actually a Tom Brady quote, but it's not a apply to Brady Cook or apply to Javon Foster or apply to Cody Schrader or apply to Luther Burden. That applies to everybody within our program. I mean, if Blake Craig comes out and kicks and does a better job than Harrison Mevis, then we've got a kicking controversy too. All right, because what you did last year doesn't matter. It's about what you can do moving forward. Last year I'd give you confidence, but every year you got to earn it. You got to earn it, and that's what we're going to do. So.
What traits have you seen from Jake that you like, or is it making a good fit?
Well, I haven't been able to see Jake throw because of the NCAA rules, but I do know, just watching tape, he's got some arm talent. He's got natural arm talent. He's got quick release, good feet. He's got an understanding of what it takes to be an offensive player. I like just being around him. He's got the right kind of persona. I think he's done a really nice job of fitting in with his teammates and getting to know those guys. He's played in some big-time ball games before, and so I think he knows what it takes to play the position, and I think he is looking forward to a chance to just grow and develop. And obviously, with what Kirby's done in his past and what we've done here with the past history of quarterbacks, I think they're all excited about the opportunity that lies ahead.
Coach, with Kirby Moore coming in, at the press conference, he was talking about how much that kind of leaves you room to do other stuff off the field. Has any of that really changed right now, or is that something more so down the line of all season when you see more changes where you're free to do other stuff?
No, I'm doing a lot of other stuff. But I'm not doing other stuff. I'm just able to be more focused in what I'm doing, as far as whether it's speaking engagements, whether it's focused on our team responsibility with special teams to get those things lined out, whether it's looking under the hood at position issues that we had last year and trying to make sure that the fundamentals are right at positions of concern that we had, whether it's sitting in other position meetings and taking notes and trying to figure out how we can improve, whether it's our teaching or our delivery or our fundamentals. I spent the better part of February sitting in the defensive meetings, understanding what's going on there. It's allowed me to do a lot of different things. It's also allowed me to focus on, the things that we've talked about, that I talked about with takeaways and turnovers, and how can we improve those, and how can we be more explosive. How does us starting fast and having a lead at halftime translate to us being successful in the last 3 years we've been here? How does, if you study Coach Pinkel, when they were successful in the SEC East, they had 20 non-offensive touchdowns, ranked in the top 20 in special teams, and only allowed 1. In the last 3 years, we've only scored 7 and given up 6, right? So, those are statistics that I been able to study and figure out, okay, these are the things that we've got to push in order for us to be successful in this league.
What do you want to see from the offensive line this spring?
Yeah, I mean, look, the offensive line has to set the tone of our program. It has to, and it's got to be physical and it's got to be tough, that's what it's got to be, all right? And that's the challenge for these guys, right? They've got to set the tone. They've got to be tough. They've got to be tough in the trenches. It's got to mean something to them. They've got to run the team which is a challenge, because we got a lot of good leaders, man. Like right now, our linebackers kind of run this team. Chad, and Tyron are really good players and really good leaders, but we really need that offensive line to step up and be physical and be guys who offensive linemen set the tone for team, right? They're team-oriented people. What's up, guys? They're team-oriented. They don't ever get the credit. They don't ever get the features. And so we need that kind of personality and that kind of persona to rub off on the rest of the team. And, those guys are big, physical, intimidating people, so that's what we need.
You just brought in one transfer there, at least so far. Is that a sign that either pretty happy with what you've got coming back, or, you know, the younger guys you've got coming up, or could you still maybe look at that position later on?
Well, I can't speak to what's going to be in the portal in I guess 6 weeks, right? Like, that's hypothetical. So our job is to develop what we have and take what we have and make it to what we want. And so, last year, one of the regrets that I had was not playing Armand sooner in a full-time role as the starting tackle, because he came in and played really well, and his future is really bright. And Marcellus is a guy that played left tackle, and he's got a lot of experience, but we think he can translate to either right guard or right tackle, depending on how Armand plays off of that. I think competition's the best thing we can do, whether it's Connor, Drake, or Bency at the center position. Javon Foster's one of the top 5 tackles in the country, so we ought to be all right there. But then you look at guys like Tristan Wilson or Val Erickson or Curtis Piegler, guys that we feel like can really play. EJ, once he gets off of injured reserve. If you recruit guys, it's your job to develop them, and I don't really want to get into this every time we have an issue. We just go try to plug and play out of the portal, because then you lose that developmental factor. And so if we have a belief in those guys, and that's what we do, we do have a belief in those guys. Doesn't mean that if somebody shows up in the portal we think can help us, it doesn't mean we won't take them. It's just right now we're focused on these guys, and I think we've got a lot of opportunity for guys to really compete and play.
At the defensive end spot, what did you see like from Austin or Austin Firestone and Joe Moore to kind of go out and recruit those guys?
Availability. Austin played in 3 games, and I talked to Coach Fitzgerald about him, and really felt like there were a ton of positives. Coach Fitzgerald had nothing but positive things to say about him, and so just having a chance to get to know him and the way he attacks the weight room and goes to work, we felt like he'd be a good fit from he'll be a redshirt freshman, so he's got some opportunity. We're not just taking a one and done. Joe had some pass rush ability on tape. We felt like there was a lot of room to grow there. Plus, he was from the St. Louis area, and so we felt like it was kind of a natural connection to get those two. And then obviously Ben was an opportunity for us to take an in-state young man and let him compete for an opportunity. We feel like Johnny and Arden are 2 young men that have been in the program that are developing and going to compete for it. We're going to slide Darius Robinson out there for a little bit this spring, just like we did in the bowl game, to let him have some opportunities to show position flexibility, but also to develop him some, which will alleviate some of the depth issues. With D-Rob coming back, our defensive tackle numbers are actually a little bit out of whack for a scholarship standpoint, so sliding him out to play defensive end gives us a little bit more flexibility there from a scholarship standpoint.
Coach, real quick, back to Armand. He obviously played right tackle last year. Could we see him slide inside?
Yeah, he'll start at right guard the first day of practice, and then we'll just kind of see. He's a very powerful, athletic player, and we'll just kind of see what is his best fit. For us, it's about getting the best 5 on the field. And speaking of 5, I think you had 5 key storylines for the spring. I don't think that was one of them, but I'll read y'all's articles.
Eli, what does year 2 look like for Luther, starting with spring? And
Yeah. Luther's going to slide into the slot position. We played him at X last year exclusively, trying to just limit the amount of volume on what he was trying to learn. But in the past history of our offense, whether it's been at NC State, whether it's Boise State, or here, the slots get the large majority of the targets from a running catch opportunity. And with us, with Dominic transferring, allows us to move Luther into that slot wide receiver position, allows Chance, Theo, Danis, that wide receiver room's deep, Makai, Mookie, to play on the outside and also play the slot position too. So Jamarian Wayne to play outside. So allows us to get Luther in there, get a few more touches, ball in his hands, yards after contact, and then let the rest of these guys fight it out from the outside and see how it plays. And like I said, everybody's got to fight it out. I mean, Danis Jackson, I think in 21 led the team in receptions at some point at Ole Miss. So there's a lot of capable players out there. We just got to get them the ball.
You mentioned Jamarian, he back at receiver full-time.
Yeah, Jamarian moved back to, after the bowl game, moved back, or actually it was during the week of the bowl game, moved back to a wide receiver. Just with the transfer portal and some of the additions that we were able to make in the secondary, I feel like that'll be his quickest way to the field and become a contributor.
That room, not just him, but you just mentioned all the transfers. I mean, it looks completely different.
Demarion Houston too. I mean, crud, that dude looked pretty good in the bowl game too.
Was that a pretty clear thing when you looked back at last year? Look, this is a position that we've got to kind of make over based on losses and just whatever you saw on tape last year.
I mean, I think it goes to opportunities to add good players. Like, what's the best available, and how can you be the most explosive team you can be? And we had natural connections to Theo. Obviously, Demarion was already on our team, and Danis. We still got Josh Manning and other guys coming in. So it's going to be a competitive room. We just got to get them the ball more frequently and more accurately.
What is year 2 like for Baker and trying to extend on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just got to go further faster, right? Like, he's got to get further along. Last spring was pretty vanilla for us on defense as we were trying to install that. We will still go back and start from day one, and probably start with our lead call, bench 8, and then work our way up. But you ought to be able to get further faster with basically, 8 returning starters and multiple guys who were contributors last year in backup roles who should know it. So they should be able to understand what they're doing and get a little bit further ahead. And then, hopefully you see guys playing faster within the defense, right? So they hear the call, they recognize the offensive set, and whether it's a pressure or a base down, they have a quicker understanding and be able to play faster.
Eli, tailback. Cody took a lot of snaps last year. Was this a chance for Dolores and the other guys to earn some more looks too?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to become more explosive at that position, specifically yards after contact and explosive runs. And I think, Cody did a lot of really good things for us. He's very dependable, and he's going to be tough to beat out, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to let everybody have the opportunity to do that. And, we want to see more consistency out of Nate. I know that there was some midseason issues there, and so let Nate have another crack at it. And then T-Man got pulled his hammy on the very first carry of a 2-point play in the first day of pads. So now it's opportunity for him, who's added muscle and understands the offense and can get up to speed quickly. And I think those 3 guys will really have a good battle this spring. And the rest of that room, that's a room that anybody can set themselves apart.
You mentioned one of the young guys, Josh Manning, also Logan Reicher, 2 KC guys. So I was kind of wondering, last recruiting cycle, you really went in St. Louis, kind of dominated that area. But what does it mean to kind of get into KC to kind of start recruiting that area, kind of winning there?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue we went in and won KC too. I mean, you look at Mekhi Miller and Armand, both true freshmen, both playing significant roles and significant reps, and so I think we've done a better than average job, to go into that area and get 2 quality SEC players and 2 guys that'll probably be starters as true sophomores. I think it's pretty impressive, and look forward to doing more. Obviously, going back in there, and Josh, we've got Max on our team, and obviously Blake Craig. So I think it's just whatever the state provides, we're going to take, right? So if there's an SEC caliber starter they're in the Boot Hill, or they're in St. Louis, or they're in Kansas City, or they're in Springfield, or they're in Mexico, Missouri, or St. Joe, I mean, we'll go find them, man. So.
Coach, what have you and Coach Moore talked about as far as what you guys want to see out of the tight ends this spring?
Yeah, we need to be more consistent in being able to block, whether it's on the perimeter or in the trenches. We were not consistent enough in making sure that our man didn't make the tackle, creating knockback or at least a stalemate at the line of scrimmage. But you got to be able to dominate when you're blocking corners and safeties as a tight end on the perimeter, and we weren't able to do that. And we would like to, again, create more explosive plays, maximize the opportunities that we have when we're catching the football.
Time for a couple more.
The indoor
The indoor is on track to be given to us on, the last update I got was the end of June. Obviously, that would be totally done, but, there's some sort of hope that maybe we can get it at the 1st of June. Maybe they're still putting up graphics or something, and people aren't able to use the restrooms or something like that while they're finishing out tile, but it looks to be done mid-June.
Eli, how do you feel like Brady's, rehab recovery has gone since his surgery? How have you seen him embrace that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I was there at the hospital when Brady had his surgery and got out of recovery, and it's always a little bit of tough on athletes when they can't go out and do exactly what they've always been able to do, and so. But Brady attacks it just like he does everything else, with a great attitude and a very single-mindedness. I think one of the coolest things is him and Trevez. Trevez is a left shoulder and Brady's a right shoulder, but they work out together every morning, and they're pushing each other. And I actually got a great picture of them in the weight room the other day. Like, one of them was worn out and the other one was patting him on the back and encouraging him to keep going. And those two guys have really accepted that challenge and have pushed each other and are better for it. So I think both of them will come out of it stronger in the end.
You had a big picture. We're going on 3.5 years of every week, one of us asking you about everything that's changed in college football since you took the job.
Yeah, there you go.
Now it seems kind of settled. You're a year away from having a 16-team league and a 12-team playoff, and everybody's calling this like the last season of the old way of college football. Does it seem like you're getting close to things calming down, or do you just at this point expect something else coming around the corner all the time?
No, I don't think there's any form or fashion that it's settled, because I think there's too much. I mean, there's a bill in California that's talking about, revenue sharing, and I think that's probably one of the next challenges that we're all going to have to face, is figuring out what does compensation through whatever the ways of compensation are going to be to these athletes, because we were in the SEC head coaches meetings about 2.5 weeks ago, and there's just so many other things that are out there, from playing rules to NIL to transfer portal to signing day. I don't see any settlement in college football, to be honest. So, I mean, are we playing in a 9-game schedule? Do we know? Is it 8? I mean, it's only a year and a half away. We probably ought to start booking hotels. So, and then there's the consideration of, if you're playing a 9-game schedule, that means every other year you're playing 5 away games. And if you play a non-conference team that's a home and away, you're potentially going to be playing 6 away games every year for, SEC schools. That's not the norm from a revenue generation standpoint of home games and stuff. So there's a lot of unanswered questions out there. So I just kind of wait to find out on Twitter what's going to happen every day, and then kind of react accordingly. So yeah, I don't have a sense of settlement at all. What I have a sense is try to make do with do the very best you can with the information you have at hand, and as it adjusts, adapt to the very best that you can.
Eli, back to Brady. I know when he first got hurt, it was obvious that he could play through it. I mean, that was what you guys knew. But was there kind of a knowledge that, hey, this is probably going to have to be fixed after the season? How'd that go?
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV. But his injury was the on the backside and not the frontal. And so that is a little bit different when you're talking about a quarterback. And as far as the repair, it's still very painful. But it's not what you're talking about when you're talking about quarterbacks who have like a Drew Brees or something like that, when they have those injuries. So yeah, and like I said, everything that was done was in consultation with Brady, his family, the doctors, and what was in their best interest, as well as the team's best interest. So, but we never put our player in jeopardy, contrary to what Twitter wanted to say. We never put our player in jeopardy. There was no opportunity for him to hurt it any worse, progress any worse, or was there an issue with? I mean, it was painful. Anytime you have an injury, it's painful, and he showed incredible toughness and leadership to battle through it. Yeah, again, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV, and I didn't even get the chance to stay at a Holiday Inn last night. So I'll let Zach handle that. I think there's cautious optimism that he'll start his throwing progression in April and build up to sometime in mid-June to be able to throw. No Sam Horn questions. That's impressive. That's pretty good.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, good.
Just answered it too well.
I know. I started out with